I think we have to understand that giving people agency means giving people strong, solid institutions that will survive changes in government and survive changes in donor fashion. The region does not need more 3-year long or 4-year long or 5-year-old projects to plant more trees. It doesn't even need 3 or 4 or 5-year-old projects to teach farmers how to regenerate their trees. What it needs are strong, solid institutions that are there for decades, that help farmers manage their landscapes, that help farmers regenerate those trees, plan their grazing, understand how to transform these nuts and debitter them into proper foods, etc., etc., etc. And that are there for the duration. You need young men and young women to go to university to study agroecology, knowing they can make a career out of it, and they can raise a family off the salary they get from training these farmers. That means institutions. Normally it's ministries of agriculture who should do this. But ministries of agriculture have two problems. The first is their budgets are getting cut because there's debt. The second is, who's picking up the slack? Agrochemical companies. An agrochemical company's business model is predicated on selling you a bag of something. It's an easy way to make money. Here's a bag of fertilizer. It's great fertilizer, it works. Pesticides are fantastic. You have a problem, you spray it, boom, the problem's gone. These products are fantastic, but if that's the only thing you do in the landscape, you're not helping that landscape develop. But that's the only thing that the farm shops do, and it's the only thing that the private sector extension services do, because they were only trained in the use of these intensive agricultural systems. So you don't have anyone in that landscape who's training people on how to use ecosystemic processes, how to use trees and animals to rekindle the productivity of that landscape. So what should governments do? And donors collaborate over the long term to put in place institutions that do this over the long term. I don't know if that needs to take the form of some kind of trust or some kind of foundation or some kind of other organization, but what it cannot do is to continue being the current model, for example, the UN model, where you have lots of competing agencies, each competing for funds. It cannot be the current development models, where you have lots of development NGOs, each competing for funds. And it certainly cannot be the project model, where for the next 3 years you're going to plant trees, and the next 3 years after that you're going to use fertilizer, and the next 3 years after that somebody comes in and wants to place toilets in the landscape. None of that works, right? And the reason why none of it works is in every case because the decisions are taken away from the landscape, away from the people who live in those landscapes. Governments in the capital, or even worse, governments in Brussels or Washington DC or Geneva or international institutions who try to do the best for those people, but they don't know the local context. Unless you live in that village and you know what the soil is like and you've heard the stories of your granddad, you are not going to understand what you really need to do. So what you need to do is go into those villages with this, yeah, you have your science, the technical stuff, the money, you have all of those things. But these are tools you're putting at the disposal of people, and it's up to those people who decide what they need to do to restore their own landscapes.
No one is planting the tree in the office. No one is planting the trees also in the business level, but everyone using the opportunities and benefit of those trees. So we need those who can plant the trees and who can take care of the trees and who can understand the ecosystems. So it's not only the matter of numbers of the trees or the count quantity, it is the quality. Those communities know the indigenous trees who are there, who can respect the different ecosystem, the trees who cannot require a lot of waters, the trees who can help the restoration of the ecosystem. And when we say ecosystem, it is the birds, the insects, the wild animals, the human needs and all. So we need to put them as actors. How we can do that? I think during the design of each program or plan of the Great Green Wall, we need those people to sit in the tables, and we need the indigenous women also and youth to come and sit in the tables to design the plan together. And secondly, we need to have the project who are adapt to their own needs. So we cannot give them the project of millions of dollars. It's not reasonable. So we can give them the small project. Excuse me. So we can give them the small project that they can manage, that they can know how they can do with it. And those projects need to be adapted also to them. So we cannot ask them to fill like an Excel sheet of I don't know how many thousand of people, or ask them to make a report of how many thousand papers. So what we can ask them is to adapt to the new technology, to record a video. That's my project. Or to send a photos of how they are doing it. And like if they have like $5,100, so they can say, we have it to do a land management first, water management second, and then plant the trees, and then have something also we can eat. So then they can do that themselves, and then the project can be successful.